and we'll look after them while the patient goes in the back.
Walk to the back of the shop and you'll find a formalized, even sophisticated buying process.
Kendall, this is Trish Regan from CNBC.
Nice to meet you. So you're the bartender, right?
Bud tender.
Bud tender.
Lee showed us the dispensary's marijuana menu, which contains samples of the 4 varieties of pot that are sold here at any one time.
This is different than these. What's different about them?
Red and white wine, you know,
Oh,
different
that's different.
flavors of wine. Yeah. These are samples that you can pull out, open that up and smell it.
It's very strong.
And then see if you can smell the difference between that and this. No? Yeah, a little
I think
different.
that one smells a little better.
Yeah, see?
There's not only marijuana to smoke.
That comes from one particular farm, and that farm will always package it like that?
Exactly.
But to eat as well.
Ranging from 5 to 25, depending on what you like. We have caramels, candies, pies,
Brownies, peanut butter, chocolate chip, chocolates, truffles, and then olive oil and salad dressing oil
My
up here.
goodness. Wow, it's like a grocery store back here. Okay, what is this?
This is our plant catalog.
Lee also sells marijuana plants.
These are our starter plants for people to grow their own.
And this is the nursery where Lee's pot gardeners tend to the plants. These employees receive medical benefits as part of their paychecks. Even the state of California has its hand in the marijuana till.
It's 44 bucks.
Sending letters to the dispensaries reminding them of their obligation to pay tax on all the pot sold. In 2006, the state collected more than $11 million in sales tax revenue.
How much money do you pay in sales tax to the state of California every year?
$300,000.
$300,000. And what do you pay in federal income tax?
About double that, about $500,000, $600,000.
So the government's making money off you too.
Definitely.
And yet his entire enterprise comes with considerable risk. Possessing marijuana may be legal under California state law, but it is completely illegal under federal statute.
Half-eighth, the mid-grade.
And the more you sell,
Any edibles or hash or anything?
the greater the chances of being busted by the DEA, which Richard Lee knows all too well.
How often do you get the marijuana in? Every week, every month?
Every week.
How much do you order on any given week?
Yeah, that's kind of getting into a little sensitive areas as far as trying to give exact numbers on that.
Why?
I'm not sure I feel comfortable with that.
Why?
It's just kind of goes into the area of taunting the DEA. It's a matter of having a little respect for your opposition.
Coming up,
We knew that there was marijuana coming in. We knew it was on the street. We knew somebody was bringing it in. We had no idea who it was or where it was.
a marijuana mystery. He was one of the biggest drug smugglers in American history. But for years, no one knew his name.
Give me an idea of how much money was coming in to your marijuana smuggling operation every year.
About 50 million.
That's next, when Marijuana Inc. Inside America's Pot Industry returns.
Once upon a time, before the marijuana trade became a homegrown enterprise and the American pot business exploded, in Northern California's Emerald Triangle, huge amounts of the drug were smuggled into this country from overseas. These well-financed, sophisticated operations were not only illegal and dangerous, they were immensely profitable. This is the remarkable story of one of those smugglers. Bruce Perlowin was a nice Jewish boy from Florida who became nothing less than the West Coast marijuana kingpin.
At a certain point, I wanted to be a big marijuana smuggler, and I wanted to bring in as much marijuana as I could possibly bring in.
Perlowin did just that, creating and running one of the biggest drug smuggling operations of all time.
We saw ourselves as modern-day pirates, modern-day swashbucklers.
What about the fact that it's illegal?
I'm an outlaw, or I was an outlaw.
That outlaw ran his massive drug conspiracy from right here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Perlowin smuggled more than 300,000 pounds worth of marijuana into the U.S. The street value on those drugs approached $1 billion, and most of his pot slipped right underneath one of America's most famous landmarks, the Golden Gate Bridge.
Give me an idea of how much money was coming in to your marijuana smuggling operations every year.
About 50 million.
Perloin's massive operation provides a vivid snapshot of the marijuana business during a bygone era. It was the 1970s and 80s. Raiders of the Lost Ark was the big movie. The San Francisco 49ers were well on their way to establishing a football dynasty, and Bruce Perloin was smuggling hundreds of tons of marijuana right under the noses of federal authorities. Perloin recruited a small navy, hiring boat captains and their fishing vessels from the nearby fleet anchored at the Northern California town of Moss Landing, which had been hit by hard times.
They were fishermen until I came along and gave them a more lucrative business enterprise. They'd much rather fish for marijuana than fish for fish. It was way more lucrative and more fun.
It's not like you're out in the middle of nowhere here.
No, in fact, when our boats came in, they were looking like fishermen coming back from a fishing trip, getting ready to come into port.
But
We had marijuana secretly on board. We were very sneaky.
so this boat right here, this is obviously not one of the boats that you used, but how much marijuana could you put on a boat like that?
Based on the size of the hull, you could put between 60 and 80 to 100,000 pounds in a boat like this.
So how much money are we talking?
30 million.
While Perloin was raking in the cash, FBI agents at the San Francisco field office were startled by a sudden jump in the amount of pot on the street. This was the man assigned to the case, Special Agent Chuck Ladding.
We knew that there was marijuana coming in. We knew it was on the street. We knew somebody was bringing it in. We had no idea who it was or where it was.
But Ladding did know this person was smuggling in enormous amounts of pot.
He was making $1 million a month. No question in my mind.
Perloin's marijuana supply came mostly from South America. One by one, he sent his fishing boats to a tiny village near the town of Jorada in Colombia. The marijuana was flown in by Perloin's Colombian partners in large bales from the country's pot-growing region hundreds of miles away.
They would load it onto planes, fly it over 3 mountain ranges, and drop it onto the west coast of Colombia, where it would be gathered and stored by a village.
Once Perloin's boats loaded up in Colombia, they set sail back to the San Francisco Bay. 3 weeks later, they arrived, filled with tons of pot, prepared to pass under the Golden Gate Bridge.
This is the time. If they're going to bust you, this is when they're going to bust you. Everybody's on full alert. It's the moment of truth.
Perloin even purchased his own pier to offload his drugs. We visited what's left of it.
How long did it take you to offload your boat?
We could offload a boat and fill 2 truckfuls of marijuana and get the trucks off the dock and the boat reloaded, fueled, and gone in 57 minutes, less than 1 hour.
How did Perloin select the crowded maritime harbor of San Francisco Bay to offload his drugs? He did what any self-respecting executive would do. He hired a research firm.
I told them I was writing a book on smuggling. They compiled this entire research project for me. And what I found is that where most of the busts occurred were up in Coos Bay, Oregon, or down in San Diego, the two borders, the border of Canada and the border of Mexico. So that's when I knew to look in a place like San Francisco, because that's where there was no heat. San Francisco Bay was wide open.
With Perloin's operation in full gear, Chuck Ladding's FBI team was starting to zero in.
He was really big. He was, at the time, the largest that we were aware of in the FBI, by far.
This is almost exactly where the boats came in, right here. Maybe another 200 yards that way.
The smuggling scheme was run like a Fortune 500 company, with Perloin as CEO.
In 1980 alone, I spent $500,000 every week, the entire year.
On the business?
Paying for the marijuana itself, buying houses for stash houses, buying speedboats, buying new trucks, finding new docks, always making your business more and more and more sophisticated and expanding more and more.
Okay, so you've got $50 million going in and out of this business.
That I need to deal with somehow.
That you need to deal with.
You create an entire business on just what to do with the cash. So we had lawyers flying money to the Cayman Islands all the time for us.
You can't take more than $10,000 in cash out of the country. Of course, here I am talking to the king of marijuana smuggling. I'm sure you figured out a way to get those hundreds out of